what were some differences that you quickly notice from the American system, school system, and sports or whatever, and now you're in the German? What are some big, just kind of challenge, or not challenges, but changes or differences that you've noticed?
Yeah, so one of the main differences is that just like in the German school system, it's so much harder. I mean, like the things you learn, like the actual grades and stuff, like the
Curriculum.
material, the curriculum is not that different, but the opportunity to get good grades is so much, like it's so much harder to get actually good grades.
Okay. Why do you think that is? Just curious.
I don't know. I think Germans are strict. So, and they like to follow rules. So I think that's kind of sort of point. And it's harder to get good grades in Germany than in the US.
Okay.
That's from my experience.
Have you checked on your child lately?
That was our biggest thing.
Do you know where your kid is?
It's 10 o'clock.
I'm sorry, it's 10 o'clock, yeah.
How funny is that we have to have something to tell our parents that you have kids outside?
Oh, gosh.
That didn't mean that they were checked out. It just means that they were doing other stuff. You were supposed to be doing what you were supposed to be doing.
Yes. Welcome back to another episode of Rhythm and Rome, where we talk about cultural differences, misconceptions, similarities, all the craziness in between. And I'm Benef. I'm here with my co-hosts Trecia and Paul. How are you all today?
Bonjour, ça va?
Bien, merci. Yes, so we are talking about schools and the differences in school systems, not only from state to state in the United States, but all over the world, or at least the places that we're familiar with. So as always, if you've got a comment, please do comment, share your stories. We want to know what it's like to go to school wherever you are, because we know it's very, very different.
This is definitely a fascinating topic because as Americans, it's not something that we normally even think about, because we probably, if I'm a betting man, majority of people in America probably think everyone has the same level of going to school and whether or not they start, from September, or do they do tri-semesters or, half semesters or anything like that. So this is kind of fascinating. And it was very fascinating to hear different sides and see different things.
There are kids in the States that go all year round. Yeah, it's just
all year round.
Yeah.
In America?
Yes.
It's the thing.
You're not talking about summer school. You're not talking about summer school. I'm talking
about the school is just all year round. They have breaks.
Correct. They have breaks in between.
But not this long ass summer break. Yeah.
Well, they're in Colorado. I mean, they have the breaks in between where you're going. I guess it's the 3 quarters, and then you have a 2-week break in between. And because I know for a fact that one of our friends that lives in Castle Rock, her kids are like that. They have that 3-quarter, and then they have a 2-week or 3-week break in between. They break for the holidays at the end of the year, and then.
Okay. So it depends. Like in Japan, it's mostly all year round too, and they just have shorter breaks. Versus.
And I noticed there's a lot more shorter breaks, at least in Germany. But in France, I wanted to say there's shorter breaks, but I don't think so, because whenever there's spring break, like I think spring break is normal time frame for everyone in America, right? Like it's usually March. Or at the tail end of March, April.
Early April, yeah.
Yeah. So, or mid-April, not late April, but.
It's March here.
Yeah. So I could tell you in France, it's a bit weird because so each region in France have different time frame when they go to do their spring break. So people that live in Normandy, for example, may start their spring break towards the ending of February. People in Paris start their spring break in March, and then people in another region. So it's kind of weird because it's actually, I feel like it's better because not everybody is off at the same time.
Well, it helps to stagger also, for retailers and for those that are trying to, accommodate those travelers. It allows them to stagger that business and plan. So I'm sure there's some thought into that, of course, when doing that.
It definitely is. Two big things that stuck out to me is there's no such thing as a school bus. Kids are going on Metro.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no yellow buses, there's no nothing. Kids are taking regular public transportation. And kids are like, I feel like we coddle our kids a lot in America, meaning the parents are either driving their kids to school, picking them up, or waiting for them at the school bus area or walking to them to school. Now, there are some parents that walk their kids to school, depending, but for the most part, especially in Germany, kids okay, you need to learn. Go do your thing, go to school. At a very young age, you'll see kids walking on their own. So it's clear that's, safety is very, very good in these countries and
like
stuff.
when I was growing up, I walked to school. I mean, so it may be something that's changed over time in America.
Yeah. Well, it probably also depends on what state you're in, right? Because I walked to school too as well when I was in New York City, but it was also dangerous. There was a lot of kidnappings going on in America in the 80s. So it might depend on what area you're living in, but majority of the time you will not, even in Huntington when we were in Long Island, most people would take their kids to school. Even though I did walk to school, but I was not allowed to walk by myself.
We may not want to go down this rabbit hole at all, but it might also be like a generational thing, because as Gen Xers, we were just like, fend for yourself, go to school, come home, you're a latchkey kid, all these things. And so as parents, as Gen Xers that are parents, we wanted to be more present for our children. And did we overcompensate, and are we over present?
Correct.
But
correct.
So
I think it also has to do with, I also think it has to do with, I think that is a monetary thing. It has to do with the level of, it has to do with money, because those who, moms, the stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads, if you had that luxury, you could walk your kid to school, you could drive them to school, you could do that thing. So, but for those,
but you had the free school bus too, as well. So
right, and you had, yes, and you do have that as part of the education, where you had transportation. But if you're in a middle class and or working class, I should say, you did not have that luxury, so you had to depend on either or taking a bus or walking.
But we bring up the class system, and I think that's important to note, because we have the working class, we have the middle class, so a lot of it is economic based, because schools are where you live, how much taxes you pay, the higher income families living in the nicer neighborhoods are going to have nicer schools. So the school system is very economic based, and everyone's going for the most part to public schools, or you could pay for private, but like everyone's getting the same. There's only one type of high school diploma in the United States. It's the high school diploma, and you get it, and it doesn't matter what school you went to, really.
I want to slightly push back a little bit, Benef, on one thing you said, which was it's a generational thing when going to school and stuff. I think it's the opposite. I think it's a cultural thing, meaning because it's not the same in the Gen Xers in Europe. They, on the other hand, felt that having your kids walk on their own or doing things on their own is a form of learning responsibility. And because I can tell you, I have another same age as we are, German friend who, they have kids and stuff like that. And when they were going to school and growing up, their parents, like, they had them flying at the age of 8 by themselves to go visit their grandparents in another country, and not being there with them and sheltering them. It's very rare that we would do that. But I think it's more of a cultural thing versus a generational thing. That's all I wanted to say, because it's not the same, I don't think, in a different part of the world.
I think that's part of it as well. It has to do with, your upbringing or where you are. Like for instance, I was a latchkey kid. So I came from a single mother household. It was out of necessity that I had to learn very quickly how to fend for myself and do what I needed for myself. So versus, I, went to school like, in Huntington where you had two person household or with with a mother and a father, and those responsibilities were
Yeah.
shared, or you had a car or whatever the circumstances
Yeah.
are. So I think it's a combination of all those things
Yeah.
that makes that decision, and also the societal influence of where you grew up and where you were and what's expected.
So
It's
let's talk a little bit about like the different countries and their systems, because you had an opportunity to interview some people who go to a German school. These are half German, half American children that go to a German school, and then of course their parents. And that was some pretty. I mean, it's just very, very different. And it's so the way that they do things in Germany, for example, I'm not sure that it would fly here. It would be.
what was some of the like, how do you think the German schools are compared to when you guys had them go to American schools and stuff like that? What was it?
Yeah.
Be honest, I won't be offended
Yeah,
if you tell me
no,
how it is and
no.
stuff like this.
There are a few differences, in
Yeah, tell me.
the general education system. Like in the German system, after 4th grade,
Mhm.
all the kids are divided into different schools. Like the kids that are academically stronger go in that school, and medium go in that school.
Interesting.
Yes, it's when you explain it and think about it like that, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, and then that, like kind of is the path to the rest of your education. I mean, there's ways, even after 4th grade, if you get into the middle, educational system, you can still get your higher education and go to college, but it's a little bit of a detour.
So then
And yeah, so
it's interesting.
yes, and that puts a lot of pressure on parents and kids in 4th grade.
Yeah, that's a young age to be like.
Very young.
It
I mean,
is
you're literally
very young.
learning whether or not you're going to be on a college path after 4th grade. I mean, I still have the
Yeah,
my nose.
Yeah.
At that point.
It's a very crazy system. I don't know why it hasn't been changed. It should have.
Do you guys have, or do parents in the German system complain about it or protest about it,
Yeah,
or is it
not
something that they
really.
just
It's
go?
such political. It's so political. I don't know why yeah, I don't know. It's just that's
just
how
normal,
it's been.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
And so for
normal.
me and for her, then knowing the differences of how it is in
Yeah.
the U.S., partially from family members, my family members,
Mhm.
or friends of ours, when you draw that contrast to it, you see kind of how intense it is. And when our daughters are in 4th grade, that's time to go outside and play and have fun.
Yeah.
And some of their parents were so intense with them
Yeah.
that they were making them, stay home and study on the weekend in 4th grade
Because you're what, like
breaking
10 years
points.
old
Yeah.
or something? Like, and obviously you and I can relate to the American school system, because I just feel like, and forgive me, I don't want to judge. I'm just saying at 4th grade, I wonder how your mentality would be if somebody says you're smart enough to go to this level.
And it separates the kids
Yeah.
at a young age. Hey, you're smart. You're not so smart. And it's
That's
yeah.
devastating.
And that whole system was actually one of the reasons why I was hesitant to move back to Germany, because I like that
Everybody's
school
together,
system
and
much
if you're
better.
not
Yes.
smart enough, they give you
Yes.
the help,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you don't, and you still continue with your peers.
Right.
But it sounds like you're not continuing with your peers if they separate you by.
I mean, you do, because you connect, through sports outside of school and in your neighborhood, and you still are kind of connected with all the kids that you've known throughout, your elementary school.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, like you guys probably don't know, but Jeff is my friend who I was able to, know Yulia, who's his awesome wife, and their 2 awesome kids as well. And I've learned so much, even though I lived in Germany for 7 years and I knew a little bit of something. But the bottom line here is, I think government is extremely overbearing, more so in this is where the socialism, I guess, part will come into play, where the government basically owns your kids. But in this retrospect, I'm going to say that's not a bad deal, meaning like they can't just miss school. Whereas in America, the parents is the overall sayer pretty much of whether you go to school or whether you're not.
Well, you know what? We didn't ask if they had if the Germans do homeschooling at all. We didn't ask that.
So I
That's
did. So
interesting.
I do know about that. Meaning they don't do that. It's not a popular thing in Germany. I just didn't ask it on camera because I didn't think it was important. But yeah,
Well, that's
they
one of the reasons that
yeah.
like the parent has the option to be like, I don't agree with what's being taught in this school. I'm going to take my child out, but you have to demonstrate that you're actually doing
Right.
a homeschool program, not just like sitting around watching TV all day.
The parents in Germany don't have much say of the curriculum or whether or not they agree with what is being taught in school.
Yeah.
It's very strict.
Well, even beyond
Well,
that, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just saying for, you know, and speaking on this, having worked in education myself and being a part of that system, the school systems in the United States have started to practice customer service. And what it's done, it's taken away the authority from teachers. It's taking it's kind of if you will, dumb down that job. And I'm only saying that just for the lack of words, but that's truly how I feel about it. We no longer want to treat our teachers like professionals that they are, because they do go to school, they do go to learn. And I'm not trying to say that all teachers are correct. But once you begin to start to dismantle and have a chink in that armor there, and then you start practicing, on top of that, start practicing customer service, it gets into a situation where you see where we are today, where you know, parents are injecting themselves, and yes, they absolutely should have a say, but I believe that it should be in concert in community, in lifting a child and in raising a child and teaching a child.
It's the only thing I'm questioning is I don't think the teachers have much say in what they can and can't teach, even though the
Agreed.
parents will come to them and say, "Don't have my child do whatever," but
Agreed.
it's
But they
their
fear, but
hands
they
are tied.
fear, yes, they fear retribution, you know, to that, or you
They
know,
can't
losing
teach.
their job. They
Right,
can't teach. They can't. They
because
don't have the
Department of
leeway.
Education, yeah, Department of Education says no, or the state, whatever, says you only can teach X, Y,
Well,
Z.
and where are they getting that from? That's coming from the constituent, that's coming from the parents that are unhappy with the
Absolutely.
curriculum
Who's
and
the
Well, yeah, the
taxpayer?
superintendents
don't put
and all
this in
this.
it. But
Right.
they change that stuff because of the parents.
Well, of
the-
course,
the
because of
complaint.
tax, remember, school is tax dollars. So, you know,
In the
everything
United
goes,
States,
Tied
it's done
again
by
back
tax
to
dollars.
the money. Everything is tied
everything
to
ties
money and the
in
lobbying and who's
America,
providing. Yes.
And
Yeah.
like Yulia was, you know, mentioning, you know, there's not much of parents can say, no, I don't want my child to
Which would
whatever.
not fly here, as you can see in
Exactly,
the United
because
States.
we have too much
Well, yeah.
freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Well, I
We
don't
have
know
too
that.
much-
Yeah,
No,
it's a
that's
tough
what-
it's a tough
Well,
line to balance.
I don't think
Do we
so.
want to be like Germany where everything is like super strict? You have
Yes.
the same teacher with the same class for from
Until
kindergarten
your
through
fourth grade.
all the way up.
What
yes,
is
by
that?
fourth
10
grade.
years old? 10 years old? Fourth
Yeah,
grade?
about 10 or 11.
9,
9,
and
10,
then
11.
So this is where it gets dicey because according to Yulia, in Germany, at fourth grade, and I mentioned, I said, that's a pretty young age to tell a kid basically they're dumb or smart or in between, because that's basically what they're doing. This is where I say parents don't have a choice. They take a test or they do whatever they do to figure out, okay, your kid ain't gonna go with.
Yeah, but they do have a choice. They have a choice in their parenting and what they expose them to. So, and to keep them on track.
There's some kids that might have learning disability. There's some
Agreed.
kids that
yeah,
might
they didn't
might
talk
need.
about that.
They
I'm
didn't
not
talk too
sure.
They
much
did
about
not
that,
talk
but-
about that.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, I mean, the bottom line is, even if you do have this, the chances of, and the parents cannot change their mind. If they say your kid is going to the mediocre school, like a parent can't say, impossible, my kid
Okay,
is.
so
I
here's so I'm sorry.
Well, I think I don't think that they're like your kid is going to the dumb school.
I know they don't say dumb school, but
But
there's a class system of
but
it.
is it like, okay, your kid just doesn't have the aptitude, somehow they know this in fourth grade,
Yes.
to be able to go to college, they're going to do a trade.
With that system, and then you compare it to when they went to school in the States at that age,
Yeah.
what would you prefer? Or I'm assuming the education then becomes what? If you're just separated, you're smart, you're not, and you're really not. How do you educate them? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how does that work? Like, it is intense, like you said.
Yeah.
But
there's a difference in the responsibility, I feel like.
Mm.
In the US, the school and the teacher has a responsibility, it seems, to keep the kids on an equal level, somewhat wherever that level is.
Mm.
Whereas, and again, this is just my understanding, right? But whereas in Germany, there's just like, no, there's natural separations that are expected to take place, which then puts a lot more pressure on the parents to, like, if you want your kid to go, like, the teacher is gonna teach it. If the kid gets sort of either left behind or doesn't understand it, like, they're not going to
give them extra help.
I mean, it's not that they won't give them extra help,
They
but
do give extra help. You know,
Before they separate.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Like,
okay.
you know, especially math and German, you know, those are like amazing at that age.
But they might also just say, like, okay, well, maybe this just isn't for you. And that's an acceptable, like, well, no, you're just not gymnasium, which is the high level of college track, if you will.
Oh gosh.
Material, and but as a parent, it's like, well, I can't accept that in a 10-year-old
of course,
child.
of course.
That intensity is something. There were two parts, right? I mean, I'm sort of more a little bit like traditional in like that, you know, kids are learning, and it's like, no, you didn't, you know, get a good grade on it. You need to work harder or something. So I like that. I like the genuine, like, learning and understanding that I need to work harder if I want to get a better grade. Whereas sometimes in the US, that seemed like it was a little bit different than when we were younger.
Of course, yeah.
So I liked that. I don't want to say intensity, but I liked that clarity in how you were and where you were. But I didn't like the intensity, the outcome of it, or how impactful you know, young education is on someone's life.
I mean, I think that the trade system in Germany is really very well looked upon. It's not like
It's
here
very
in the United
robust.
States,
It is.
where they're like,
Yes.
oh, you're in the trades, you didn't go to college. Because we make those separations after high school. People get the diploma, but then there's like the college track, and then there's the trades. It's not happening in fourth grade, and we just the US looks down on the trades.
No,
I don't think they do that in Germany.
Crux of what Yulia was saying is that, and this is why I was very shocked, because I honestly didn't know this, and living there for 7 years, did not know that it starts at this young age for Germans. The point I'm making is, mentally, for a kid that grew up with, just picture, you know, all three of us growing up together, and then all of a sudden, one of us is not going to that top school because we passed, or whatever the basis of it is to get into this school says, and now you're going to go to this one. There's a problem with that at that age, because kids are not nice people. Kids are, regardless of where you are around the world, kids see that, and they're not going to be like, you know, I'm sure some are going to be nice to you, but there's
but you're
don't
also
know. But it's normal for them in Germany. So
exactly. I was just going to say that.
Are they doing that? We don't do that here. So it's like,
from your American
you're going
perspective.
to the dumb school. But in Germany, it's totally normal. So they're like, oh.
So it is normal, but I can tell you that my friends that I do know from when I was there, when they go to college and they know of someone that goes to college that doesn't go to the same school that they do, they will definitely say, oh, it's for people that's not good. And they do that here.
You mean the Germans say that?
The Germans, yes.
Then these are Germans that are saying this.
And French too as well, because there are French people that will be like, oh yeah, no, he's not gonna, he's just gonna get a trade and that's it. And they look down on that. They'll look down
in France for
right. They'll look down on that. And like you said, Tricia, you alluded to the customer service part where we have to cater to the parents. There's none of that in Germany.
Mhm.
The teacher says
Mhm.
this, that's it.
That's it.
Or you can't just, you're fined if your kid is out of school in Germany.
Oh, that was crazy. They have the police
I love it.
looking
I
for
love
the
it.
kids.
I love it.
And he was like, "You're Americans today."
Yeah, my friend Jeff is like, nope, you're American today. You're not going. But I like this where there's certain things where, like you said, again, Tricia, where teachers are allowed to teach because parents can't get involved. I like it. I know I don't have any kids, but
Well,
I'm telling
it
you, I
interests
like it.
me.
I really enjoyed speaking to Jeff and Yulia's kids because, you know, they, like I said, they were great gals, and they had really, I mean, heck, they're the ones that also stated that, you know, education level, because they can compare. They went to school in America, in Massachusetts, and they went to school in Germany, and they said the curriculum and the education way better. They didn't just say better, they said way better than the States.
So I'm Alina. I'm 16 years old. I was born in the U.S. And then when I was 6 years old, we moved to Germany. And then when I was 12 years old, moved back to the U.S. and now back to Germany 3 years ago.
Ah,
I'm Sophia. I'm 13 years old, and I was also born in the U.S. And then when I was 3 years old, we moved to Germany, and then every like 3 to 5 years we moved back.
okay. So where exactly in the U.S. were you guys born?
In Boston.
Sorry to hear that. And I said the same thing to your dad. Should have been New York,
No.
the best city in the world.
So this recent time, I mean, I was excited because
Yep.
I knew I loved living in Europe because you can travel and things like that. But I was also sad to leave my school and all my friends in the
Okay.
U.S. because I do love the American school system, and especially where we live. They
Uh-huh.
have great schools, really newly done schools.
Oh, wow.
And the high school that I was gonna go to the next year is newly renovated, so I was sad to miss that.
Oh,
I was a little more upset because I didn't really remember Germany that much because I had only
Oh.
lived first grade
okay,
here, and
okay.
and I had lots of friends, and I was actually
Mhm.
and we've been going to a Saturday German school
Mhm.
every Saturday, but my German skills weren't at the top, so it was
Okay.
a little tricky to like speak German.
What are some adjustments you had to make, and what are some challenges that you may have experienced when you guys first left America and now you're in the German school system?
Sure. So I mean, challenges for me were
Yeah.
spelling. That was like probably my biggest challenge.
Okay, I can
German
imagine.
speaking, Yeah,
hmm
because it's just so different. It's very complicated in German.
Long words.
Yeah. But it was actually not that big of a challenge other than that.
Okay,
Like I kind of adjusted to the language pretty quickly,
gotcha.
speaking, and I made friends pretty quickly too. So it's actually
Okay, and how about you?
Yeah, so for me, I didn't, like school-wise, I didn't have that many challenges. We moved during COVID, so
Uh-huh.
it was in 7th grade that I moved.
Okay,
And
okay.
so that was sort of because it was like hybrid. So we were in school 3 days and then out of school 2 days.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard to like really get to know people. That was my like thing. And I was also in a very small class.
Okay,
So you didn't really get to know that many people, and you weren't able to meet that many new people
Gotcha.
because of the hybrid thing.
what grade did you start when you moved to
when we
Germany?
moved to Germany, I was at the end of 4th grade.
Okay,
So, but I didn't really, grades weren't that big of a deal because they kind of knew I was not very, I hadn't spoken German a lot,
Okay,
a lot of
okay.
times. They were very like nice, kind of.
gotcha.
My grade.
Gotcha.
The biggest big difference,
Changes.
yeah, that I realized is that in the US you get a new teacher and like kind of new class every year,
hmm
but in Germany it always stays the same. Like you always have the same teacher, same class.
This is interesting you said that because your parents said the same thing, and I was just flabbergasted because I was like, do you think that's kind of boring because you don't get to see other like different kids? You know what I mean? You get to see the same kids for the next umpteenth amount of years.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, so in elementary school, that's how it is.
Yeah, yeah.
and then but that it also you do more with your class instead of so you know the grade, but you're not as like close with the grade. You do more stuff within your own class and with your teacher, so you get closer within your own class. Well, I mean, in the US it's also like, so in Germany there's 3 different like tracks that you can go on. So there's the lowest one like for, and then that school only goes to 10th grade. Same thing with the second track, and then there's the highest track, which I'm in, which it's not that, but there's just like the 3 different ones, and then the pressure is so much higher to perform well on that one. And in the US, everybody just goes to the same school, no matter what level you're at. Because in Germany, after 4th grade, you get like a recommendation which track you should go on. And in the US, everybody's in the same school, so that's why also I think that the grades kind of are. I don't want to say that I'd ace every class, but I think I'd do better because it's that much less strict. And also like one of the main differences, like all my friends always ask me, like, is it true that like exams and tests are multiple choice? Because that's like that's crazy.
There's some truth to that, yes.
Yeah. Just like the exams, like the actual exams, they play a much bigger role in Germany than they do in the US, and they're much harder in Germany as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I just wanted to add that. I just wanted to say real quick that just the girls were so well spoken in the sense that they were able to articulate what
and they
was
speak
going
both
on,
German
and to be able,
and English.
and to just be able to go back and forth in the comparisons. I just want to say, we definitely need to make the full interview available because they did so well in being able to really paint that picture. So
yes, and this is coming from them, and I really wanted to showcase that. Because there is a difference when we talk about back to school. Yeah, we talk about books and all this other stuff and the hoopla of. There are some good comparison with what we do in the States and what they do in the States. Like kids do get up and don't put on their back to school gear and make sure that their gear is all good, the backpacks and all this other stuff and flashy things like we do in the States. There's comparison on that level and so on. I love when they talked about their time with, they like the friends and the camaraderie that you get when you're in America, the friends that they have and so on versus.
And people were kind, they said.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the States versus, and I can 100% agree with that.
Well, thank you for tuning in to our lively discussion of back to school. We would love to hear your thoughts, your comments on the school system where you live, especially if you're in a different country or a region of the world that we are not familiar with, didn't talk about, South America, Africa, Australia. Would love to hear. So please do share, subscribe, comment, and we hope to see you again. Remember, every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Thanks.
Ciao.